In this video tutorial, I'll introduce you to Android's concept of permissions. Currently, we have on our application quite simple interactivity. All we do is calling other activities in the same application. But Android is pretty modular and component-based, which means that one of the strengths of Android is that you could call virtually any component from any other application, given it has sufficient permissions. Take a look at the Digitron 4000 when it's ready. In the activity main, it's supposed to collect some sensor data. In the activity staff, it's supposed to access the contacts of this Android phone. This approach is tremendously helpful because that way you don't need to create your own version of a contact application or an analog clock or whatever, but you can just access the system component or the standard program for some task at hand, respectively. Now, all these kinds of access are governed by permissions. Let's have a look at the Android manifest. And here we have one specific tab, Permissions. And here you can add permissions. For example, to access a GPS sensor, we click on Add, User's Permission. That part is always the same. And then select one of the permissions given in this drop-down box. The two permissions for accessing location data are android.permission.access course location and access fine location. If you want to have a look at the battery stats, for example, your application needs to define the permission battery stats. For access to the Internet, the permission Internet is necessary, and so on and so on. For example, for reading the contacts, we need to apply the permission android.permission.readContacts. As you can see, these are lots of fine-grained permissions, which lets you create a very defensive app that, say, only accesses the Internet, or on the other hand, even a full-fledged, full-system administration tool, authorized to view and edit all settings of your mobile device. So why shouldn't you just include every permission that's visible here? Quite simple, because then in the market, in the Android market, your application would tell the user, here, look, I want to access everything, and your application wouldn't be very likely to be loaded on a user's device. So the best practice is play the permission again defensively. Only include those permissions that are really necessary. Although it might be tempting to access, for example, the user's location, don't. If your application wants to read contacts, include the permission read contacts and nothing else. If it only accesses the Internet, only include the permission for Internet. And that's it. Okay, so if we want to access the contacts, we just define read contacts, save the manifest, and we're done.